So over the last few videos, I think I didn't really design the videos I thought I wanted to kind of share with you guys. It just kind of happened very generically. I know we talked about the war. We talked about earthquake. Um, I think we mentioned like how large the universe and how insignificant we are. I think we watched a video on Pattaya murder and prostitution, and kind of I think all this kind of leads, and then ultimately last video I think we watched Brian Johnson about things that could help us live forever. Now, ultimately, again, I'm in my 50s, um, and I worked very hard in my life, and I think in most people's eyes I achieved quite a bit, but I made a ton of mistakes, more than more than I wish I did. Again, I may make quite a bit of mistakes. I remember in college I was a biology major, physiology, neuroscience major, but my minors were philosophy and psychology. So I think the video we're gonna watch today is very relevant to kind of, right? I guess let's get to the point. I guess it's what's the meaning of life? Um, I feel like when I was younger, most of us when we were younger, we were told to kind of value grades, achievement, and then when asked why, well, essentially, so you have a good life, good job, good pay, and what for? Um, I think many of our parents don't tell you it's for the nice houses, nice cars, but we see that in our news media, right? We see, hey, this person has celebrity has this nice car and nice house and nice life, travel, freedom. And so then we say, okay, well, then we make a connection. Okay, my parents said we should get good grades, we should get a good job, good pay, and I guess a good life is that's the TV is feeding us. Well, what is a good life? It almost seems like we education was designed completely opposite of what we should have done, right? I think the first thing we should learn early part in our life, whether it's in our family or in school, is what is the meaning of life? Because when you know that, um, I mean, life is going to be hard no matter what, but when you know the meaning of life, it becomes a lot more straightforward. You don't have to go a certain path. For example, when I was growing up, engineer, lawyers, doctors. I mean, that was a very typical, right? But if we our thought, if I, we were learn, we if we learn again the meaning of life, we then know it's up to us to discover how to get there, right? Because there's various ways, depending on what you think the meaning of life is. So, um, anyway, I hope I'm not just ranting. This is kind of a process for self-discovery as well, as in that I feel like I'm in a position in my life, again in my 50s, I feel like most of my life is behind me. So the mistake I made, all I could do is try to learn from it. But I'm hoping that these videos can help someone younger. I mean, I have 3 kids, they don't live with me. But sometimes I feel I try to give them a lot of guidance, and how do you do that when I'm kind of try learning? I mean, yes, I'm 30, 40 years ahead of them in life experiences, but I'm still learning myself again because we were never given the right thinking at the very beginning. So okay, so let's look at this video.
So it is true that scientists are not going to tell you why you're here. They're not going to tell you what the meaning of life is. But there is actually there are things you need to know if you want to start to explore those questions for yourself. I mean, you need to know that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. You need to know that the Milky Way galaxy has got 200 billion stars. Most of those stars now we know have planetary systems. We estimate there are something like 20 billion Earth-like planets, or potentially Earth-like planets, in the Milky Way galaxy alone. So if you're asking questions about what is my place in the universe, you need to know those things. So it is true that scientists are not.
Okay, so this is probably one or two, three videos I kind of want to share with you guys and get your thoughts on it. And so we have already talked about how big the universe is. Billions of stars and billions of Earth-like planet just in our galaxy, and there are billions and trillions of galaxies. And so, in the scheme of the entire universe, what's the meaning of life? Probably not a whole lot. I mean, we're just nothing, right? When we die, you plant me under a pineapple, I become a pineapple, right? Just like when we eat pineapple, we eat pig, they become us. When lion eats a pig, it becomes a lion. And so when we die, we become stardust again. And so in the scheme of the universe, we're nothing, right? There's really no purpose. Now, there is probably a purpose. We mentioned in the last couple of videos about purpose of maybe humankind, that we're moving toward a artificial consciousness that's eternal. So maybe as a human species, our purpose is to get to that point where there's a eternal artificial consciousness that can do everything, can create everything in their own universe, in their own local area. And but then so what? I mean, is the point of, let's say we get to that point. They said there's type 1 Kardashev scale, type 1 planet level civilization is when we're control on weather, earthquake, and essentially everything on the planet, and all the energy resource on the planet. Level 2, I think it's when you have the local star or sun, you control the energy, and then there's certain technology that can go with that. And then level 3 is all the stars in our Milky Way galaxy. But so is there a point, like we're literally getting there? Like if you look at all the technology that's merging, we're getting to conscious machines eventually, maybe even uploading our memories, maybe. In the scheme of, we've been around, humans been around for 300,000 years, and all this is just building up in the last 30, 40, 50, 100 years. And so it's probably going to happen sooner than we think. I'm not sure if I'll be around. I'm in my 50s. um, but then what? Now, some people say, well, then should go to other planets and other galaxies and help them and move them along further. But then, is there really a point? I mean, maybe they should go through their own evolution. Anyway, this is kind of a very broad topic. It's probably not very applicable. So let's look at this second video, which hopefully it's a little more meaningful.
Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect?
Responsibility. I think this resonate with me. I think most of us are working so hard, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck or you have a good bit of savings or you're wealthy. Having purpose, having responsibility is probably what gives life meaning. I grew up, my parents are divorced. I grew up, and they both came from relatively wealthy family. And my dad was really essentially allowed to do nothing, and he really achieved nothing, learned nothing, and taught me nothing. And throughout my whole life, all I tried was to work hard. But again, I don't think I was doing a whole lot of thinking. I just worked hard. Um, I wasn't driven by a purpose. I just worked hard and achieved and anyway, so his life, my dad's life, was it meaningful? I don't know. To him, I guess it is, because he still would love to live, and he's in his 80s, late 80s, and he's doing, just daily life to keep himself fed. But to everybody else, I don't know. Critically speaking, I'm not quite sure if his life is very meaningful to anyone else. So I think having a purpose, having meaningful work, and having people you care about or causes that you care about, I think on an individual level that probably give meaning to life. I don't know what your thoughts are. There's a lot of philosophical belief on what is the purpose of life, but I really think as our schooling, since it's such a big part of our life, really should start with that. Um, some people said, some of the greatest thinker and Einstein, they didn't really go through a lot of formal training. Newton, I mean, they spend all day kind of thinking and pondering and thinking about problems and trying to figure out the world. And forced schooling was only started in the early 1900s here in the States. And it was supposedly started by Rockefeller, which is a big industrialist. And he thought, he wanted obedient workers and he didn't want free thinkers. And he was the one that forced schooling. And you see that. I mean, this is not conspiracy theory. You see that we force people to memorize a lot of things, follow rules, obey orders. Before we do anything, think about, don't question anything, just do it, and align ourselves with our peers. And don't think, just do. There's always one correct answer, A, B, C, D, or E. Life just isn't like that. And that's why I'm so against forced schooling. And but since my kids live with their with their mom, I really have no control over their education. Um, I do think life is one is know the purpose, right? And it could be anything. It could be you want to help people. It can be you want to be the richest person, I suppose. It can also be I want to send people to Mars. It could be, hey, I want to automate everything and free humans. But I think it should start with a purpose. And the other thing is, it shouldn't be a early 20 years of memorizing. It should be learning with a purpose in mind. So if you have a purpose of, for example, you want to help people, well, then your learning will be, well, how do you get into a position that you can do that? And it is true part of in our monetary society, you have to have money. But anyway, hmm. so I let me look at there's another definition of meaning of life. It's Aristotle. Okay, it's about flourishing. He argued that the goal of life isn't just happiness. Okay, it's becoming excellent, and meaningful life develop wisdom, courage, generosity, self-control, and justice. Um, so happiness, because a lot of people, I think people are really more generous and kind, and they want to make a difference and help. But in a monetary society, everything is so expensive, and it seems like it's always a competitive atmosphere. And so, in this type of environment, people get tired, at least for most of us, and they feel that they just want to be happy. And a lot of time, happiness, since we're all bind to a lot of things, whether it's a mortgage, business loan, a job, student loan, etc., expenses, we feel like we just want to be free. We want to be able to, hey, tomorrow I'm going to decide what I want to do tomorrow. Anyway, give me your thoughts, because so far we talk about having a purpose, second, having responsibility, third, becoming excellent, which can involve courage, wisdom, generosity, self-control, and justice. And then the other thing is what everybody crave for is freedom and happiness. What do you think is the meaning of life? And is that important? Um, uh, anyway, here's another belief. Nietzsche supposedly he went to Nazi concentration camp, and he know that people can survive anything as long as there's a purpose. But he basically argues, says, hey, a meaningful life is basically whatever you decide to be meaningful, right? Some people, they enjoy just having fun. Some people enjoy helping and be a missionary and helping the poor. Some people, it's about, they have 5, 6 kids, and it's about building a net worth and raising their kid properly and giving them an inheritance. So I guess life is whatever meaning that you think is meaningful. Um, anyway, in my 50s, it's all of a sudden realizing life is just so short, and I have so much responsibility. I'm still sending money to my kids, a good bit. I have a small business. It's a lot of responsibility. I have people who depend on me. I have customers who depend on me, and I have referrals that I appreciate. And anyway, okay. So I'm not sure how long it's been, but let's maybe do one more video.
What do you think the meaning of our human existence is? He just asked you, what is the meaning of life according to Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Okay. Many people are in search of the meaning of life as though it's behind a tree.
Right.
Under a rock.
Right.
If you are looking for meaning, you may never find it.
Ooh.
So instead, recognize that you have the power to manufacture meaning. Create it within yourself. And that's what I do.
What do you think the...
So again, I didn't watch this video ahead of time, but you could create your own meaning, basically. But again, for most of us, at least in the U.S., when it's such high, basically in an inflation economy, people with assets have most of the money and the freedom. And if you don't have a whole lot of asset and you're an hourly worker, it's easier to just worry about your immediate environment, and that's your meaning of life. For most of us, you just don't have enough, you're so preoccupied by your immediate surrounding, your kids, your bills, your family, your parents, but I do believe that if you get to the point, actually, you don't even have to get to the point. Regardless, I do agree with that. You create your own meaning. And that is to say, who is the judge, right? Like, I started this YouTube channel as a side hustle. Don't care about what other people think, because ultimately it's your life. Life is fast, and when I die, you feed me to a tiger, I become a tiger. You feed me to a mouse, I become a mouse. And you put me under a avocado tree, I become avocado. And no different than what we eat. When we eat something, they become us. So life is, when you pass, when we all pass, our final time going to sleep and not waking up, that's it. And so all you got is the time that you're here. And again, through this video series and my channel, we'll see where I am in 6 months, in a year, in 10 years from now. But you get to create your own meaning, and it's a decision. It's hard because we all have a lot of responsibilities. And
What I have found is
What do you think?
What I have found is an urge people have to search for meaning. Is it under this rock? Is it behind a tree? Metaphorically. If I join this group, will I find meaning with them? Okay, go ahead. But what you're doing is relegating meaning in your life to a search. Suppose you don't find meaning. That'd be a force of disappointment in your life. You're setting yourself up to be disappointed if you don't find meaning. I have another idea. I use this for myself, may or may not work for others. I recognized long ago that in a free society where I'm not enslaved and I'm not an indentured servant and I have some freedom of choice, that I have the power to manufacture meaning in my life. I can make decisions about my own life that create the meaning. For me, a meaningful life is learning something new tomorrow that I didn't know yesterday. Otherwise, it's a wasted day. You know the prisoner who puts X's in the boxes on the wall for the day they get out? I have that in my head, and the day that I get out is the day I die. So there's one fewer.
Learning. I think that's a big driver for me, and that's why I'm, watching all these videos and kind of sharing you with you guys. I don't think I had a lot of time to do that, like most of us. We were taught to do well in school, and I went to a lot of school, and it's a lot of knowledge about very little. And then once you get out of school, you have kids, you have responsibilities, you have a job, you have small businesses. So I just never thought about, am I creating a meaningful life? Um, but I don't know, maybe through this channel, through sharing these videos, I could help some people. And I can't imagine, I'm sure a lot of people are way smarter than me, has a lot more experience than me. But there's just a lot of younger people that I think they don't know what they want in life. And they're in the small narrow bubble of, I want to do well in school, I want to pay my bill tomorrow. But and reality is like that for a lot of us, for a lot of kids, my kids. Um, they're just following everybody and try to beat them to it. But I think younger people need to learn. They should think about what the meaning, what their purpose of life is, and then kind of just learn things that are required to get to that. And I do think location arbitrage is a big thing because the inflation in the US is getting kind of ridiculous. Basically all the wealth are concentrated in the top 0.0001%. Forget the top 1%. So if all the wealth is concentrated at the top, um, basically you can make a good living as an average person here. And I do believe you should have a living online, have something that's not location dependent or even time dependent. Kind of move your income, cash flow, investment assets to an online portal. It could be YouTube, it could be TikTok, Instagram. It could even be a brand. It could be a website. It could be a online shipping business of some sort, selling business of some sort. But I do believe for most of us, we should, from as early as possible, create something online. And then you could location arbitrage and go somewhere where it's a lot cheaper. Um, and I actually visited a few places like that. And again, there's one extreme poverty. Well, you don't want to go there because it's painful. But there are places that are much cheaper. And the benefit of that, you just feel at ease. I mean, no matter how much money you have, because when everything costs so little, um, freedom becomes a reality. Here people say, "Hey, land of the free," but for most of us, people aren't free. They have responsibility, they have duties. But when I go to those places where, it's relatively modern, food, water's clean, places are clean, a lot of food options, but it's just cheaper. I just find that, man, you feel free. And also the people it is surrounding, the environment. People don't need a whole lot to be happy. And I find that the whole environment is just a lot more enjoyable, not just for myself, but all the people around me. And to me, that's, I think that's, again, we're on the talk of meaning of life, but that I think that is one of the factors. You have the location arbitrage. Then you reduce your stress level, then you can do things uh, that aligns with whatever your meaning of life is. Anyway, I'm so grateful. I'm not even quite sure why you're still watching me, but thanks for watching. And comment below what you think about some of these perspective of philosophies are, and what you think is the meaning of your life, and maybe even also your age, and where you're at. Like, are you done? Like, are you, you have done everything you need to do? You're in your 80s, 90s, or are you young, like 20s, and you're still figuring things out? Anyway, comment below and subscribe if you like my content. Thank you. Bye-bye.